Day to close to the Government Minister, please.
Presiding Officer, let me begin by congratulating Maurice Corrie on bringing forward this motion for debate and members for their input to it. As ever with deliberations on our armed forces and veterans community, the tone and the approach has reflected the cross-party consensus which exists in this chamber, where I think we share a common purpose in wanting the best for those who serve their country and indeed their families. Veterans are a great asset to our communities, and it's important to recognise that the overwhelming majority of people leaving the military go on to lead highly productive lives. But as we know, there are a number who struggle immediately post-service, others for whom issues emerge several years down the line, and then our older veterans who experience age-related issues. And collectively, we owe them the best support we can provide. Collectively, that is as government, local as well as national, and of course working in partnership with an effective and highly regarded third sector. Here in Scotland, we have an extremely committed and close-knit set of veterans' charities, and I'm constantly impressed with the work they do day to day to make a difference to the lives of our veterans and their families. The Unforgotten Forces Consortium, which also encompasses several non-military charities, is a great example of this, particularly in regard to our more aged veterans. One of the most striking things I've found in engaging with charities in this area is the duty of care they feel for those who approach them for assistance. If they cannot provide the help being sought, then they don't just point the veteran in another direction. I've seen for myself countless examples of charities personally guiding people, taking them through what can be a frustrating process to ensure they source what they require by way of help. Both I and the Minister for Older People and Equalities have had the pleasure of meeting with Unforgotten Forces this year to learn about their work. I first met them in January in Ayrshire and then again when addressing their annual conference in Stirling in April. In both cases, it was great to hear about the good work they've been undertaking and to discuss with them how the Scottish Government can support the veterans sector. Now, we know that the overall population in Scotland is ageing, and those who need help now present with far more complex needs, and our veterans community are not exempt from this. By bringing this group of charities together, some of whom are in the gallery tonight, Unforgotten Forces is able to provide seamless support for our veterans across a range of needs, whilst making greater use of available funds through, for example, improving signposting, better cross-referrals between organisations and cutting down on duplication. In particular, their emphasis on ensuring that those seeking help need to tell their story only once has been welcomed by veterans who want as hassle-free a pathway to support as is possible. Their efforts in supporting our veterans community very much parallel what we in the Scottish Government are doing more widely across Unforgotten Forces' three themes of physical well-being, sensory impairment and social isolation and loneliness. For example, in our efforts to support older people's physical well-being, the Government has provided nearly £1.7 million to the Care Inspectorate over the past few years to expand the successful Care About Physical Activity programme to reach more areas of Scotland. The programme provides practical support and encouragement to care staff in building physical activity into daily activities and routines of those in care. I know that older veterans who have participated in the programme have benefited greatly, and that ex-servicemen are also helping bring their knowledge and expertise by leading activities in care settings. To support those veterans who find their eyesight failing in later years, we've been working with partners to update the guidance for the Certificate of Visual Impairment. In the coming months, it will include asking whether an individual has served in the forces, including as reservists. If they have, it will signpost the patient to information about Scottish war-blinded who are able to offer services and lifetime support, irrespective of whether the condition is directly attributable to their time in the services. Another key part of our work across government is driving progress to combat social isolation and loneliness throughout Scotland. We published our strategy on social isolation in December last year. We recognise that this can be an issue for some veterans, in particular coming from a community that has historically emphasised self-help. That's why the Scottish Government has also funded organisations through the Veterans Fund to help our elderly veterans have an active social life long into their old age. Unforgotten Forces Partners Fares for Free would be an example of this. In terms of future funding, my ministerial colleagues and I are currently considering how we can support the veterans sector beyond 2020. Presiding Officer, like Mr Corrie, I note calls for the UK and Scottish Governments to work with the consortium to review future funding options in order that it can continue its innovative and successful work beyond its current funding term. And let me finish as I began, on a note of consensus. As I indicated a moment ago, the Scottish ministers are presently considering how we support the veterans sector in the years ahead. But also I know that the consortium are looking actively at how they make their model sustainable and looking at a range of ways in which this can be done. However, Mr Corrie's motion is right to note calls for input from the UK Government too. The UK Government supported the establishment of this model through LIBOR funding, which is coming to an end, as we've heard, next year. And there is clearly a question about, following this initial commitment to begin the work, what support there will be available post-LIBOR from Westminster also. For our part, the Scottish Government is happy to work with the consortium to review funding options to help ensure it has a sustainable future, because it has certainly proven its worth. Presiding Officer.
Thank you very much, Minister. That concludes the debate, and I close